This was the picture the Catholic Social Services sent to my parents when they decided to adopt me. This is all that we had for many years. I have no idea whose hand that is. For years I fantasized it might have been my mother, but it wasn't. My mother wasn't married. There's a wedding ring on that hand. My assumption is that this was one of the nuns. It was called Assistenza Materna. Doesn't that sound helpful? We're here to help mothers and their children. It turns out that that particular place was, this happened to have been one of the most notorious places of the baby trade in Rome. I have no idea why it was a topic of conversation in my neighborhood among all the neighborhood kids of where were you born? And, everybody, I was born in St. John's. I was born at Ohio Valley. I never had an answer. I didn't know. Because when I would go home and ask my mother for an answer to that question, her answer was, we were lucky, we got to pick you out. And I never quite, I went, oh, okay. Didn't know what that meant, but somewhere around the age of 7-ish, I went to my mom and said, does that mean I was adopted? And she said, yes. And I went, oh, cool, what do you know? And she said, well, we don't know much at all about the circumstances. We guess that your mother was a young girl who just wanted to give you a better life. We know that your name was Maria Luisa. And so they kept the Maria part and put it into my name as my middle name. And that's all I knew for a long time. I was always very curious about where I came from and who I looked like and what kind of mannerisms I had that related to my mother's or my father's. But I also knew that if I started asking those questions, that it would do damage to my relationship with my adoptive mother. I wanted to protect her. I didn't ask any of the questions. I went along thinking all of my adult life that my mother was a young girl who just wanted to give her baby a better life. In 1996, after my adoptive parents were gone, in the process of cleaning the house out to get it ready to sell, I found this in their cedar chest, in Mom's cedar chest. And I opened it, not knowing what was in here, and I found this. It's an Italian passport. And I opened it, and look whose picture is in that passport. Yeah. And I thought, oh my God, that's me. And I looked at it, and I said, Maria Luisa, Mom told me that's what my name was, and there's this last name. There's a last name on this. There's my birth date. Oh my God, this is me. You hear stories about feeling like the world shifts. That was a moment at this point. I knew my parents knew more than they were telling me, that I do have an identity and I should be able to find it. And I also saw that we had Catholic Committee for Refugees on this envelope. This is all that I had because the records are sealed and closed up by everybody. In here there are some copies of letters from the attorney they worked through, which was great, except for that attorney had been out of business and dead and records gone from there forever, for a long time. So that was a dead end. In the late 90s, the internet was still kind of new, but there was an internet, so I started trying to find out how I could find more information. And I found this Yahoo group called Italian Adoption. This was John Campitelli's group at the time. And he kind of connected us, but again, it was rudimentary. Fast forward a couple of years, and a gal that I worked with at my job was fascinated by this whole story. She had studied for a while in Italy and had friends who were still there. In fact, one of her friends' father was an official, a minister of some sort in the Italian federal government. So she contacted him and said, can you find out anything about her? Here's her name, here's her birth date. Adina and I, my friend and I, decided to travel to Rome then to see what I could find out. And when we landed, this document was put in my hand. It is in Italian, and it says basically, it's very dry. Santarella Maria Luisa, è nata a Roma gives my birth date and time and where. At the time, her mother, Angela Santarella, lived in Rome at this address. She is deceased, which that was another gut punch. I went over there hoping to find her, and I found out that she was dead. But then it also gave the name and address of her widower. I was ready to get on a plane and come back, but my friend convinced me, because it also said in that document where my mother was born, my friend convinced me, let's take a train to Puglia and see if we could find some of your relatives, which was a good move. She was very smart, because I did. That's when I found one of my mother's brothers, a cousin of mine. They then put me in touch with my mother's widower in Rome, whom I met, and he just embraced me like he knew about me all along, which he didn't. Apparently, I have her stature and her build. I don't look a lot like her, but he recognized me immediately. He brought one of her best friends over to meet me. And her best friend just kept shaking her head. And she finally said to me, Angela had a recurring nightmare that someone ripped her baby girl out of her arms. I wanted to cry. I learned as much as I could about myself in that trip. In the intervening years, I have butted heads with the U.S. government since 1998 to get my alien file. Mm-hmm. We all have them. We're immigrants. We have alien files. Mm-hmm. And they kept telling me, we don't have it, we don't have it, we don't have it. Oh, we can't find it, we can't find it. No, we don't have it, we can't find it. It took me until 3 months ago to finally get that file. I was able then finally to piece together a few things. I still don't know for sure what the circumstances were. I do know I have an older brother who was not interested in meeting me when we were in Rome. I found out that she gave birth to me on September the 24th in the Assistenza Materna and signed the relinquishment papers on October 13th, which tells me that she really did not want to give me up. I am 99.9% sure that they coerced her. And especially with that recurring nightmare that she kept having, I feel so cheated. Not because I had a bad life. I had a wonderful life. My parents were so happy to have me. They gave me everything. And, it was a great life. But I still feel cheated. I felt like my mother was cheated. My brother was cheated. Antonio, the man I met, her widower, who adored her, was cheated. To have all of that happen because the Vatican decided that they would continue to use a World War II program called the War Orphans program on through the 70s and bribe Italian officials to keep it active so they can keep this business going is beyond infuriating.